In my video on why doesn't God heal amputees, I was having a series of comments with a Christian, and he asked the question, why do I expect God to live up to my standards? Like, why do I expect God, Almighty God, to live up to my standards? And I replied to him, I don't really. What I would really like God to do is to try and live up to his own standards, because God seems to forever be breaking his own rules. And he asked for examples of that. And I suggested that God probably broke most of his 10 commandments, certainly killing and stuff. But he wasn't too happy with that. I decided to do some further research into the possibility of God breaking his own commandments, and he does break quite a few. So what I want to do in this video is run through the 10 commandments and see which ones he breaks and which ones he doesn't. I've got my Bible open in front of me, Exodus chapter 20, and I'll try and give references as we go. Many of the 10 commandments, of course, most of them, they're obviously all instructions to people, to man, about how to live, and God, being God, would have a hard time breaking laws made for man. Luckily, we have Jesus, who was a man, to break these commandments for us. But since Christians believe that Jesus was also God, I reckon that qualifies. Looking through them, I can find 5 out of the 10 that Jesus breaks, and God breaks together. That's half, 50%. That's quite a whopping lot of them. Let's run through them quickly. First, the commandments, which ones he does and which ones he doesn't. You shall have no other gods before me. I'll grant him that one. Don't make yourself any idols. Again, I don't remember God actually ever making idols himself, or Jesus. Don't misuse the name of your Lord. Don't take the Lord's name in vain. No problem there. Keep the Sabbath day holy. That's a cracker. Jesus broke the Sabbath tons of times. The example, just the one example, Mark chapter 2 verses 23 to 27. That's the one where the disciples were walking through the wheat field, and they picked off some of the grains of wheat and rubbed them in their hands, and the Pharisees saw that and took that to be like an act of winnowing, and said, these guys are breaking the Sabbath. And Jesus gave the quote about how the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. And there's other passages in the New Testament where it says that the high priest, one of the charges the high priest had against him was Sabbath breaking. So they had the goods on him there. So that's one that he broke. He broke the Sabbath. Another commandment: honor your father and mother. I reckon Jesus broke this one as well. Remember when he was lost, when he was young, a kid, and they went to the temple. Mark 2. Luke 14:26, when he was young and they went to Jerusalem, and then they left Jerusalem and they looked around, a bit like Home Alone. They looked around, no Jesus. Went back, searched all over Jerusalem, and finally found him in the temple, being precocious, and everyone say amazed at his teaching. And they said, "Son, why have you've been worried, sick about you?" And instead of saying, "Yeah, sorry, Mum and Dad," he gave them a hard time and said, "Well, what the hell were you looking around there for? Surely you should have known I'd be in my Father's house." Another example of him not doing the honor your father and mother bit would be also in Luke 14:26, where Jesus says that anyone who doesn't hate his father and mother and brother and sister and can't be a follower of his. So instead of following the commandment to honor your father and mother, Jesus seems to be giving the instructions that you should actually hate your father and mother. Doesn't tie up. Next commandment: thou shalt not murder. Some translations say thou shalt not kill. There are so many examples in the Bible of God murdering. Obviously killing happens in battle and stuff, but there's many instances where God just wipes people out. he wipes children out for the sins of their fathers. One of the ones I'm thinking of is Exodus 12:29 to 30, where God killed the firstborn of all the Egyptians. If you're an animal rights person, well, God also killed the firstborn of all the animals as well. He doesn't do things by halves. Yeah, so all the eldest sons. It says shortly after that verse in Exodus 12:29 to 30, says after the verse about how there was crying and wailing all over Egypt because there wasn't a single household where somebody hadn't died. Because remember, firstborns, not just children. I mean, if it happened now, my elder brother, who's 49 years old, he'd die. He's 49, but he'd die because he's the firstborn. Yeah, so God definitely murders. Do not commit adultery. I can't find God and Jesus breaking that one without me being facetious, at any rate. Do not steal. I'm afraid Jesus does break this one. When his final trip to Jerusalem, he told his disciples to go ahead and they'd tied up a pony and a donkey, and take them and bring them back. And he says, if anybody asks you why you're doing this, just tell them that my master needs them, and it'll be okay. So those things belong to somebody, and Jesus said to these guys, go take them. That's Mark 11:1 to 3. Matthew 8:28 to 34. When that guy was possessed, Legion, when the guy was possessed by demons, Jesus cast the demons out and cast them into a herd of pigs, which went and threw themselves over the cliff. Great for the guy who had been healed of the demons. A bit tough for the owners of the pigs. Another commandment that Jesus breaks: do not give false testimony against a neighbor, or in other words, do not lie. Jesus said, I tell you the truth, Matthew 24:34. I tell you the truth, these events, this generation will not pass away before these events come to pass. And of course that generation did pass away. So Jesus was wrong, and he said, I tell you the truth, therefore he's lying. John 7:8 to 10. This one's a doozy. He told his disciples and his family to go ahead to Jerusalem for a feast, and he said, but I won't be going with you because my time is not yet come. So they all went off and left him, and then it says in John 7:8 to 10 that Jesus went ahead anyway in secret. So Jesus told a straightforward, blatant lie. He told the people he was not going to Jerusalem, and yet he went there later in secret. And then the other commandments about coveting your neighbour's house, your neighbour's wife, coveting your neighbour's stuff. I can't find any examples of Jesus or God coveting things. But out of the 10, we find Jesus is a Sabbath breaker. He doesn't honour his father or mother. Jesus and God together murder. Jesus steals, and Jesus lies. So, not a good guy. He breaks the 10 commandments. Later.